Most students think if they just follow the standard college application advice, good grades, strong extracurriculars, solid essays, they'll be fine. But what they don't realize is that colleges don't admit students based on a checklist. If they did, everyone would be able to get into Harvard, Stanford, and MIT. You have to understand that they're not just looking at your GPA, your test scores, or how many clubs you join. They're looking at the story your application tells. And if your application doesn't tell a clear and compelling story, you're going to get rejected. Admissions officers won't sit there piecing together your accomplishments for you. They won't try to figure out why you're a great fit for their school. If your application is messy, inconsistent, or forgettable, they'll just move on to the next application. They don't have time to play detective with your goddamn application. So in this video, I'm gonna break down how to make your college application tell a story that actually stands out, the strategies that our own clients at Inspirate Consulting use to get into their dream schools. And if you stick around, I'll also reveal the #1 mistake that makes smart students look completely unremarkable on paper. So let's get into it. Think of your application like a movie trailer. A good trailer instantly tells you what the movie is about. You don't need to sit there guessing. You know the plot, the main character's struggle, and why you should care. Your college application, it works the same way. Admissions officers should be able to look at your application and immediately understand what you're passionate about, what makes you different from thousands of other applicants, and why you'd be a valuable addition to their campus. But most students don't think about this. Instead, they submit a bunch of random achievements, hoping colleges will be impressed. They have a little bit of everything. You know what I mean? Some volunteering, some leadership, some academics, but it doesn't connect to anything. And I don't mean to be mean or be a douchebag. I just want to lay it out clear for anyone that might think they're on the right path, but in the end, look back and regret things. And so when it comes time to actually look at your application, what happens? They don't see a compelling story and honestly don't have any reason to remember you. Because why? There are hundreds, if not thousands, with the same type of extracurriculars, interests, and stats as you, if not better. So how do you make sure your application actually tells a story? First, you need to identify your core theme. Every strong application out there has a clear theme. This isn't about forcing yourself into a box. It's about making your application feel cohesive. Have your extracurriculars, course lists, essays all interweave and intertwine and whatever, so it clearly shows, this student is passionate about this, and this student is dedicated to that. So ask yourself, what do my best extracurriculars have in common? What personal values drive my decisions? And lastly, and most importantly, what impact have I made? For example, you can aim to have a core theme about being a tech innovator, a student who built an app, internet a startup, wrote about AI ethics, and did exceptionally well in their CS related courses and AP exams. How about a social justice advocate, a student who led community initiatives, worked on policy research, and debated social issues? Admissions officers should immediately get a sense of who you are through your application, not having to piece everything together themselves. I've said this before in a bunch of past videos, but I'm gonna say it over and over again to make sure you understand the importance of this. Admissions officers spend an average of just 7 minutes for your entire application, essay included. That's probably just a few minutes more than this entire video. So what does that mean? They don't even have the time to put things together for you. Now, for step #2, making sure every part of your application supports that theme. Once you know your theme, align as many things as you possibly can around it. Your activities list should reinforce your main interests. Your essays should tell stories that highlight your values, and your recommendations from your teachers and counselors should add credibility to your strengths. Let's say your theme is future medical innovator, right? Your activities list should include research, hospital volunteering, and STEM projects. Your essay should showcase curiosity in medicine and problem-solving skills, and your recommendations should confirm your work ethic and commitment to healthcare. What you don't want, though, is a disorganized list of activities that have nothing to do with each other, an essay that's interesting but completely unrelated to your application's theme, and third, letters of recommendations that just say you're a hard worker but don't reinforce your strengths. Now, all this to say that there is no cookie cutter solution. And if you already have outstanding achievements in activities that might not directly relate to the major you want to apply as, don't just quit it, right? How about trying to tie the types of skills you acquired from those different activities and extracurriculars and leverage that in other activities that actually are related to your major? It doesn't always have to be a direct correlation, and the answer to what you should specifically do just depends, right? I hate it when I ask ask people questions and they only answer with "it depends," but that's the best way to answer 99% of college admissions questions because there are just so many goddamn factors, right? Your school size, your high school ranking, how competitive your school is, what region you're in, what are your strengths, what are your interests, what kind of connections do you have, what other ECs do you already have, what kind of schools do you want to go to? It goes on and on and on and on, right? So I want to make this clear. This isn't the only way to go about this admissions process. And the other ways have succeeded, don't get me wrong. But if your application is scattered, right, with no cohesiveness, this is going to be the right step for you. Now, third, closing the gaps in your application. If there's anything in your application that doesn't make sense, fix it. Here's what I mean. Do you have a gap in your extracurriculars? Then explain how you spend that time in a meaningful way. Maybe your GPA dipped one semester. Then provide context as to what happened without making excuses. Are your activities all over the place? Make sure your essays tie them together into a logical story. Because if you don't explain it, colleges will make their own assumptions. And those assumptions probably won't be in your favor. If you can manipulate the way they see your application, why won't you take that opportunity? Again, an average of 7 minutes. That's 420 seconds on average to evaluate your application at a glance. Now, before I wrap things up, I want you to actually understand a few things to avoid at all costs. I do this in most of my videos because a lot of the students ask me, am I not doing something that top students are doing? But the better question to ask is, what am I actively doing that top students don't? Because a lot of the times you are doing the right things, but because you're trying to do everything, it hinders your progress and inevitably your chances. So the last lesson, or I guess you'd call it an inverse lesson, is trying to do everything, right? Too many students think they need to check every single box. Sports, clubs, volunteering, research, leadership, you name it, right? So they end up spreading themselves so thin that they don't have the time nor the brain capacity to do any of them at a high level. And if you just give yourself 5 seconds to think about it mathematically, what percentage of students out there have sports, clubs, volunteering, and club leadership? Especially for the group of students that are trying to apply to top 20 in Ivy League schools, probably 90+% of them are doing the same thing. But here's the truth. Top colleges in the US aren't looking for students that are okay in many different areas. They admit students with spikes, people who are exceptional in a few key areas, not average in everything. So instead of trying to do everything, focus on doing a few things at an insanely high level, at a level that only you can perform at. And this reinforces the lesson I try to teach you guys every single time. Do not try and just copy what others have done on r/college results or essays out there that has worked in the past. Because why? You're not them. You don't have the same skill sets as them, you don't have the same backstory as them, and you don't have the same experience as them. If you're trying to be a better version of Jack out there on Reddit, for example, who got into Harvard with his essay, you're not going to be a better Jack than Jack himself. So what does that mean for you? It means to stick with your strengths. Be the best you, because ain't nobody out there can be a better you than yourself. Think about that, right? So if you have special skills, use them. Don't try to be someone you're not, because I'll bet you won't do as well as them. And if you tell me that you don't have the skills and you don't know what to do, go and get them. It's 2025. You can learn literally everything you could possibly want to learn on the internet for absolutely free. My consulting program, where you work with admissions counselors with NACAC and ICA certification, I'm going to be honest with you, nobody needs that support and guidance. Will it help make the process easier, make it fast track the whole entire process, have access to experts, and increase your chances if you implement our custom plans that we have for you? Yes, but is it a need? No. The only needs in life are water, food, and clothes. Come on, let's be real. So all that's to say, if your college application isn't telling a clear, compelling story, you're losing your spot to someone who is. So before you submit, ask yourself, can admissions officers immediately tell what makes me unique? Does every part of my application support my main theme? And third, have I addressed any inconsistencies or gaps within my application? Because colleges aren't admitting students based on random ass achievements, okay? They're admitting students whose applications tell a story that sticks. Now, go make yours unforgettable. Peace.